Well, good afternoon, everybody. We are super excited to be kicking off our Coffee with Doc series. With us today, we have Denny Hare, along with the infamous Doc Clinchy, Dick Clinchy, as some of you may know. This is a first for us, and we hope to make this a long-standing program here at the museum so that we can stay connected with our history and with our communities, regardless of whether we're near or far. So thanks for tuning in so much today, and I'm going to turn it over to Doc and Denny.
Denny, and thanks for agreeing to spend some time with us today.
Hey Doc, how you been?
Doing good, doing good, man. Still alive and kicking, still playing the game. Um,
Excellent.
no, it's been way too many long since you and I have seen each other. Why don't you share a little bit of your background as it applies to EMS and the fire service before we get into discussing 9/11?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I started right out of high school. Grew up in Ohio and started as a advanced first aider. Remember the old T&I days? Uh, and did the 80-hour course up there and started as an EMT up in Northeast Ohio, just outside of Cleveland. And about 2 years after high school, after I graduated in 72, about 74, I moved to Florida and moved down. And that's where most everybody that knows me and remembers me knows I was from the Florida markets, from the Daytona Beach area for the first 7 years of my career, and then moved down to Naples, Florida. And that's where I wound up for a good 16 and a half years in Naples. Worked for Collier EMS, but then got fortunate enough that while I was working EMS, met a gentleman by the name of Jeff Cameron. And Jeff was a bit of a mentor to me in the realm of doing auctions. I kind of was in theater in high school. I was in the audiovisual group in high school. The AV geek with the keys to get into any room you wanted. And I pretty much had always wanted to make some videos over the years. And helped Golden Gate Fire, which is a fire department out in the east end of Collier County, helped them make some training videos in the fire service. But I was doing it all with VHS and didn't really know the ins and outs. And while still maintaining my EMS, and I maintained my stations until about 2000. So from 1972 until 2000, I maintained all my certifications. While I was still maintaining and working in the field part-time, I started American Safety Video Publishers with ASVP, as a lot of people knew it, with both Jeff Cameron and another EMS individual, gentleman that I met through Beacon Ambulance in Daytona back in the 70s, a guy named Robin Coran. And if you remember when there was always myself and Robin and our team of people, and a lot of times we would bring authors with us that were making product. And we started with the Carbuster series. And we got into that because we knew individuals in the fire service. We knew a couple guys named Steve Kidd and John Chkowski out of Orlando, Florida, the Orange County Fire guys.
Yep.
And they had gotten involved with, and Gary Breeze, who there's a name that you may or may not remember. He was the old director of International Association of Fire Chiefs, since retired. He now lives out here actually in Colorado. He's not far, but maybe 30 minutes away from me. And they were doing extrication competitions. And it was friendly competitions between fire departments in areas such as the Tampa Fire Department, the Orange County Fire Department, and the Mississauga Fire Department up in Toronto. And then it got bigger and bigger and bigger. And that whole process of doing the Carbusters was a name that a local television station put on them. They trussed up one of the in Orlando as they were practicing, and he was doing a live report while they tore a roof off and took him out of the car. And of course, Ghostbusters back then in 1981, 2, 3, 4 was very popular. And he labeled them the Carbusters, and it kind of stuck. And we saw Steve at a ClinCon. You remember ClinCon in Orlando? And he saw us at a ClinCon, and he saw that we were videotaping the lectures at ClinCon, and he said, "How about if we training videos?" And that's how Robin and I first got started, but we knew it was bigger than us. We knew it had to be something better than VHS, had to be something a little bit more professional for people. And so we partnered with Jeff Cameron and we formed the company American Safety Video Publishers. So I got into the realm of more EMS education and fire education, but again, started with Carbusters, and it was incredibly popular. It was incredibly well received. I'm sure part of the reason for that being well received is it was structured. It was built around a manual. It was built around small chunks, which was something that Jeff Cameron kind of turned me onto. Could turn around and take a small piece and say, okay, hi folks, here's the show. Here's what you're going to see. Let's get to part one. Bink, bink, bink. That was part one. This is what we showed you. Now let's go ahead and look at part two. And then we do it in 3 to 4 segments. He wanted to keep everything into a 30-minute format. And so Carbusters became incredibly successful. The other thing that was, I think, successful about Carbusters was it was the first time we had ever done a systematic approach, which was their survey approach, the outside-inside circle surveys. It's also one of the first times that we took a camera, went over the top of a car. In fact, that was my camera on all those videos that we did over the years. I was the camera op for that. And it was a 60-foot bucket, high reach. And I put that camera straight down and we looked at what you saw from an eagle eye view. So that got me up to the point of the 80s and doing training videos. And then we started kind of expanding. From there, we got into doing EMS education. We had bumped into Paul Paris, EMS Today show. And John Chakowski and I were there in California. It was at the Disneyland Hotel, the infamous EMS Today at the Disneyland Hotel. And Paul Paris came by the booth and he was watching the videos. And Paul was director, I don't even know if he's retired, but he was the director of Center for Emergency Medicine in Pittsburgh. And he looks at it and he goes, why can't we do something like that for EMS? So why can't we do something that's structured with video showing step by step? So I flew home to Florida, sat down with our president, Jeff Cameron, and said, hey, I got a bunch of guys in Pittsburgh, leading experts in emergency services. We flew up there in, I think it was 88, and created the very first part of the series of Street Medicine, which was based on the idea of basic and advanced care. So you have basic airway management, advanced airway management. And of course, you remember who did those? It's Dr. Ron Stewart, considered one of the experts in our industry for, airway management. From there, we did shock management with Paul Paris, both basic and advanced shock management. We did burn care. We did pediatric care. And then ASVP just started to grow in notoriety with being able to get some really good, talent that could actually watch, and be a part of the tech advising, but also be a part of the host. They could actually present the information. I mean, how many times do you have a doctor talk to you on the camera? Into doing stuff with Ray Fowler, who's now out in Texas. And from there, we sort of grew to a point of where about 1990, we started looking at how can we make more, how can we make it bigger? How can we present more information? And that was when we became a division in 1992 of Mosby Lifeline Publishing. And that's where we met Claire Merrick and David Culverwell and Rick Weimer and got to work with them to actually take and expand our products lines. I think that's when you and I ran into each other. Might have been around about the 90s, late 80s, yep, if I remember right.
Yep.
Is that filling it up for you there? I got more I could tell you, but.
Well, your stuff, I tell you, as a guy that's taught a lot of EMTs and paramedics, I used an awful lot of Carbusters to try and get people to understand what the extrication process was all about. So it was good stuff, and Street Medicine was great. I mean, it was just super stuff for teaching. So what were you doing professionally in September 2001 before 9/11?
Well, prior to 9/11, so we sold ASVP in 92. In 95, I left the organization being independent, and I continued to still make as much EMS product as we could. Publishing companies were coming to us asking us to make product. Jones and Bartlett, which Larry Newell, I knew Larry Newell from the old days. And so Jones and Bartlett was talking to us. Brady was talking to us. And in 1998, I started doing medical sales in the state of Florida. One of the companies that eventually got absorbed by the bigger was a company called Medic Master out of Orlando, Florida.
Yep.
And they had reps in Georgia, Alabama, the Carolinas, but they had only one guy in Florida, and he had the southern half of the state. And that was Rick Rogers, and you can't handle the whole state, 64 counties. So I just happened to see an ad in the paper. So they were looking for somebody to do medical sales in the north half of the state. So I reached out to my friend Karen Hahn, who was the director of it, and she put me to work. And while I was working for them, Jim Page and Jeff Barron at GEMS called and said, "What are you doing with your life?" And I said, "Well, I'm just basically, doing medical sales here in the south end of the state." And in fact, let me back up just for a second. So as you know, we sold in 92 to Mosby. GEMS was acquired in 1994.
Yep.
And I was still part of Mosby at the time. And in fact, we organized it so that at EMS today, we made the announcement that GEMS was now a division of. So they reached out to me. We stayed in contact after I left the company in 95. And they said, "We need a conference director. We think you might be able to fill the role. We're looking at other people that are professional management people. What we need is somebody who knows EMS, but also knows how to work with people." And they were real complimentary to me, asked me to come to California. I told them no twice. They said, "Just fly out and meet the staff." I flew out, met the staff. We all fell in love with each other. And so I moved in late 99 to San Diego. And I was director of conferences. And throughout 2000, we did the first Do Fire conference, which put me back into the fire education business, which was a lot of fun. And in fact, that'll come up when we talk about 9/11, because one of our lead instructors was from New York City. And we did that in 2000, came around into 2001, and they were in the process of merging the GEMS product line in Mosby with Reed Elsevier. And Reed Elsevier is one of the largest conference management companies in the world. I think they do 4,000 to 5,000 conferences a month. And a lot of them are small, and microchemistry, and they're like, less than 500 people. But what do they need a conference director for? What do they even need a conference division for? And so as we were looking, I just decided, I saw the end of the road coming. And so July of that year, we were putting together budgets on how to cut money out of our budgets for each division. And when it came turn for the conference division, I stood up and I said, "I have a way to cut out about $85,000 out of the budget." And Paige looked at me and said, "How are you going to do that?" I said, "I resign." And basically, between my salary and some of the other cuts we were going to make and wrap into the marketing group, and AJ Heitman at GEMS was going to take over our program development, I said, "There's your savings. You already got Reed Elsevier coming in." And I was real happy with the decision, and we all left, on good terms, amicably. And that was July 1st. I left July 30th, and I was going to drive back to Florida. Had an issue with my car, so I couldn't drive. So I flew, spent August kind of getting my life rearranged, getting things back, shipped to me. And on September 11th, 2001, I was supposed to fly to Pittsburgh. And there was an EMS conference in Pittsburgh. I don't remember the name of that conference, but you were probably either at it or have been to it. It wasn't the one at Silver Springs or Seven Springs. It wasn't that. This was actually one in September in Pittsburgh at the center. It was actually going to be right down there by the water where all the restaurants and stuff are, the old Union Station. And I had got up, I was watching TV, and about 8:30, I shut TV off, and I was packing. I was going to head to the airport, and I was going to get on a plane and fly from Orlando to Newark to Pittsburgh. And at about 8:55 a.m., my cell phone rang. It was my daughter in Gainesville. She was just out of college, working up in Gainesville. She goes, "What are you doing today?" And I said, I'm packing. "You're not flying?" I said, "Yeah, I'm flying. Why? What's up?" "Turn on the TV." And she's yelling at me. And I'm like, okay. I turned the TV on, and I literally turned it on, went into the building.
Yep.
And I'm on the phone to her. And I said, "What is going on?" She goes, "Nobody knows." And you remember how it looked on TV? It looked like a small Cessna hitting a small building. And that's where I was.
So 19 years and 9 hours ago, you were getting ready to fly to Pittsburgh. Then what happened after the attacks took place?
Well, obviously, as we all experienced, life came to a sudden standstill. Needless to say, I did not go to Pittsburgh. I reached out to a lot of my fellow EMS peers, the Walt Stoys, the Greg Margolises, Tom Platts, the guys from Pittsburgh that I knew, Bill Brown, Jeff Lindsay from Florida, who was chief down, I believe he was still chief at Seminole Fire in the Tampa Bay area, Tampa Bay, Clearwater, St. Pete area, trying to reach out to them, find out what they're all doing. Of course, they're all trying to figure out, how do I get home now that flights are dropping off the map like crazy? I sort of stayed in contact with my Collier County, Naples, Florida, which is where I was at for 17 years, working EMS for 6 of those years, 6 or 7 years, and just trying to look at what else I could do to be either, I wasn't involved with like DMAT like you guys were, like yourself, or NDMS. I was trying to figure out what could I do for education? What could I do? Is there something that we should be doing for the educational component of it? Things got very dry for me with my video production and the publishing firms. And then at about, I think it was early November, Jeff Barron from GEMS reached out to me and he says, "Hey, you know, EMS Today is in Kansas City next year." I said, "Yeah." He said, "We want to make a tribute video." He said, "We'd like to put together a video remembering the paramedics, the 8 paramedics that died." He said, "Laerdal said they will give us the money for it, to pay you guys to do it," which my partner and I, all we asked for was to pay us for travel. We donated all of our work on it. And we told Laerdal to take the stipend that they were going to give us, and they gave it to one of the firefighter organizations.
Okay.
And we went and we traveled around and we went and interviewed people across the state of Florida. That was where my contacts were. I couldn't fly anywhere necessarily. And so while I was in Naples, I had called up my friends and I said, "Hey, is there a chance I can interview some folks? I just want to get some gut reaction. You weren't there, but your heart went out to the people of New York, to the responders. Can I talk to some folks?" And my chief of training down there, George Aguilera, said, "Yeah, if you come down like on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday next week, we've got in-service training all 3 days. You can capture anybody you want." So I got down there, we set up a camera, they gave us a little side roomers, and we would just snatch people in and sit them down and say, and it was basic questions of, where were you the morning of? What did you think? What do you think going forward? And any other comments you want to make? Those are the core questions. And I got a young girl that came in and they said to me, she goes, "This gal actually used to work in New York City. She just came to us about a year ago, maybe 6 months, a year ago. If you'd like to talk to her." I said, "Sure, if she's willing to talk." So she came in, real sweet. She's little, a room with a bunch of lights and stuff. You know what it's like to have a video done for yourself, of yourself. But I sat her down and I sat across from her and I said, "Look, all I want to ask you is, tell me what you thought the morning of 9/11 when you saw or you heard what happened." And she goes, "Well, I was on duty on the ambulance here in Naples." And she says, "The first thing I thought of was my 2 partners." I said, "Which 2 partners?" She goes, "2 of the paramedics that died, I used to work with in New York City." And suddenly I couldn't ask the next question. Starts crying. I start crying. We got up, hugged each other for a good solid 5 minutes. I said, "Do you want to continue?" She goes, yes. And we tried, and later we showed her her video and we said, are you okay if we leave this in? I think I have a way to present this. And she says, yeah, I'm fine with it. And so we were able to keep her in the video, and it ended towards the end of the video before we did the montage. But it affected me. It really bothered me to think that I met somebody, and I was just kind of blindly moving along going, oh, let's just get these interviews. But I actually had the chance to talk with somebody. And we actually, when we got done shooting, we her in another room and sat and just talked and talked. So that was post 9/11.
Looking at that interview, then that had a pretty significant personal impact on you and made 9/11 a little more personal, I guess, eh?
It did. It did. I think it was personal to all of us, especially those of us that have been a part of the changes in EMS as we grew it from the old, 80-hour T&I days to what we are today, and how immersive we are, how immersed we are on scenes, how immersed we are with fire departments if we're just a straight EMS system. And that's my background, of course, has always been just straight EMS, ambulance in Daytona Beach, county EMS in Naples, Florida. And it bottom line came down to, what else can I do going forward to make sure, and 9/11 is something that people will never forget, but to help our industry remember how we got to where we are today. We want to go forward to. How far do we want it to go forward? How do we want it to grow? How do we want it to get bigger? How do we want it to get better? How can we improve it? So it put me back into it, because it was funny. I mean, I was just, making videos, and if somebody called me to do a nursing video, I would do a nursing video, and I wasn't reconnected to the field, and it reconnected me back to the field for a bit.
So in a sense, 9/11 pulled you back into the community then.
It did. Even though my certificates were gone, it's every day I think about it, it's like I still have to go back, get me at least my EMT back. And I keep talking about doing that.
Still, yeah.
Yep. It's all family.
I recall that we had tremendous support from the public right after 9/11. I mean, it was just unbelievable. I remember some of the stuff in New York, and it was just awesome the way the people of the city of New York, where I grew up, put their arms around us up there. Do you feel that same sense of public support is present today?
It's without working in the field daily, it's tough for me to see how the public still perceives. I believe the industry is perceived as heroes and first responders. We see it with the COVID-19 stuff that's going on. We see how well, I tell you a real funny antidote. It's real short. One of our fire series was the First Do Fire series. And on the shirt, if you remember, it was a bunch of flames with the number 1 on it. It looked like a fire shirt, like a t-shirt, a duty t-shirt. And I was at a Walmart in Central Florida, and I walked in, and I was in line during one of the big years that we had all those fires. They were like, 60 counties were on fire. And I went to go pay, and the woman says, oh, no, your money's not good here. I said, what do you mean? She goes, well, you're a firefighter. I said, no, ma'am. I said, that's a shirt that teaches firefighters. Please let me pay. I still see that, and I still see it happen. We see it in the Denver newspaper where I live now. I see it at restaurants when I used to go out prior to COVID, where people were still paying for EMS and fire individual and responders. So I think we're still thought of as heroes. I don't know where we're at as far as financials go for systems, and as far as curriculums go, and who's developing that kind of stuff, and how big that's gotten, or how much smaller it's gotten, or how much it needs to change or not change. That part I'm a little out of touch with.
Got it. Where do you see the role of the National EMS Museum in terms of the kind of perspective you and I have on our profession and our history, and what makes you willing to support us?
I'll tell you, it's the reason I first got involved with you guys was so 9/11 happens, life comes back to quasi-normal. Jim Page reaches out to me and he says, hey, remember the DVD we did so long ago, History of Modern EMS? I said, yeah, it's out of date. He goes, I want you to update it with us. So Jim and I approached Claire Merrick over at Mosby, put together a package, and we went to Roanoke, to the old first aid museum up there in Roanoke, which I think you guys have got part of, if not all of. It's probably in your basement, Dick, trying to be stored. And we basically did all of Jim's stand-ups and all of Jim's presentations in front of all the different displays. And we talked about the timelines and the growths, even including emergency and bringing together, and how emergency brought us together in the 60s and made us into a profession. That's what I see what the museum does. It's not just memories. It's not just reminiscing over cocktails. It's our past, and it's what we look to become potentially. One of my biggest, not pet peeves, but one of my biggest concerns and one of my biggest talking points when I'm with people like yourself and with Walt Stoy and all the rest is, who is our next of? Who's going to pick this up and move it forward? Who's going to grow our curriculums? Who's going to write our curriculums? I know who's teaching them, but when those guys and gals retire, who teaches that? And that's where I think the museum comes in, is that, and it's a way to be a repository of all of our pasts, all of what we could be, and where do I go get information so I don't repeat again the mistakes of the past that we made. So that's where I see the museum as.
Cool, cool. I think we're about out of time. Do you have any other thoughts you'd like to share with us before we close?
I think the biggest thing I could share is for people to continue, reach out to the museum as a place for information. I know a lot of guys and gals, our eras, have got to have stuff, books, tapes, old videos, old memorabilia, stuff that we can put together so that it can be seen and looked at and discussed and remembered by everybody that either has come from the past or is going to go forward. So I reach out to all my friends, anybody that happens to be watching today, is reach out to the museum, go through Facebook. The National EMS Museum, has a great site there. Reach out and be a part of it. I've reviewed some stuff for Christy and, given her a little bit of feedback, and I hope I can do more going forward.
Cool. Denny, thanks so much for your time. Great.
Dick,
getting
thank you
back
for
connected
asking
with
me.
you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it very much. And Christy, anything that you need, obviously let me know.
Sure thing. Thanks
Absolutely.
again.
Well, thank you
All right,
very much, Denny and Doc. This was a great way to kick off the program. For anybody listening, watching, however you're receiving this information, like Denny said, our Facebook page, our Twitter page, LinkedIn, Instagram, we try and stay on top of all of the social and be as social as we can. So follow us there. You can check out emsmuseum.org. That's the big website. If you type in emsmuseum.org, /collections, you'll find our virtual museum, and we're working on building new virtual exhibits. Hopefully we'll sneak one more in this year. If not, a couple big ones coming next year, including one to follow up on our conversation here. So I'm going to turn to Denny and lots of other people for help telling the 9/11 story for the 20th anniversary. So stay in touch and we'll get that going. We have our next live session coming up in 2 weeks, and that's going to be with one of my favorite guys. I've had the last year of chatting with him. Chief John Moon started his career at Freedom House Ambulance Service in Pittsburgh, so a nice kind of roll from Denny's chat about Pittsburgh into Freedom House, and we're working on a big exhibit there too, so stay tuned. 2 weeks. We'll put a calendar reminder up on social, so hopefully we'll see you there. And always, we welcome you all to join as members of the museum, and we hope you'll take the opportunity to quick log in and join today. Thank you very much, and we'll catch you all soon, I hope. Have a great Friday, everybody. Stay safe.
So long.
Bye-bye.